Daniel Carter had always been a deep sleeper. Living on lunar colony Theta, where everything ran on strict schedules, he worked long hours as a mechanic. By the time he got back to his small, metal-walled quarters, exhaustion took over, and he barely remembered falling into bed. But lately, something strange had been happening. Every night, at exactly 2:37 a.m., Daniel would wake up. No alarms, no noises, just a strange feeling, like someone was watching him. At first, he brushed it off as stress or bad dreams. The colony could be lonely, and his mind was probably playing tricks on him. Then objects started moving in his room. His tools, which he always kept neatly arranged, would be in different spots by morning. His water bottle, left full on the table, would be half empty. The air had a faint, sweet scent, something unfamiliar yet oddly pleasant. One night, he decided to stay awake. He lay in bed, pretending to sleep, keeping his breathing steady. Minutes passed, then hours. The clock hit 2:36 a.m. His eyelids grew heavy. Just as he started to drift off, the air shifted. A soft hum, like a whisper in the wind, filled the room. A shadow flickered in the dim glow of the console screen. Daniel's heart pounded. Slowly, carefully, he turned his head and froze. Standing near his desk was a woman. No, not a woman. She was tall, with violet skin that shimmered in the low light. Long, flowing hair cascaded down her back, dark with streaks of silver. Her eyes, glowing silver orbs, watched him with quiet intensity. She was beautiful, almost ethereal, yet completely alien. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His mind screamed at him to react, to run, to yell, to do something. But he stayed frozen, locked in her gaze. The alien woman tilted her head, as if studying him. Then, without a sound, she vanished. Daniel gasped and shot up in bed. His heart hammered in his chest. He wasn't dreaming. He was wide awake. And she had been right there. The scent lingered in the air. The tools on his desk were slightly shifted. And his water bottle, it was now completely empty. His hands trembled as he reached for his communicator. Who would believe him? Who could he even tell? The colony had strict rules about unauthorized life forms. If Command found out, they would hunt her down. And yet, deep inside, Daniel felt something he hadn't expected. Not fear. Curiosity. Who was she? Why was she coming to his room? And more importantly, would she come back? Daniel had a feeling he already knew the answer. She would. And next time, he'd be ready. Daniel Carter barely slept after that night. His mind kept replaying the moment. The alien woman, her glowing silver eyes, the way she disappeared without a sound. He had seen her. He knew she was real. But what did she want? The next night, he stayed awake again, waiting. 2:30 a.m. His room was silent. The faint hum of the colony's life support system the only sound. 2:35 a.m. His pulse quickened. He forced himself to stay calm. Then, 2:37 a.m. A soft hum filled the air, almost like a whisper. The temperature in the room dropped slightly. Daniel's breath came slow and steady as he turned his head. She was there, standing near the foot of his bed, watching him. Daniel fought the urge to flinch. Now that he could see her clearly, she looked even more otherworldly than before. Her violet skin shimmered under the dim light, her silver hair floating slightly as if she were surrounded by an invisible force. She was tall, elegant, and unlike anything he had ever seen. This time, he spoke first. "Who are you?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. The alien woman blinked, tilting her head slightly. Then, to his shock, she answered, "I am Valera." Her voice was smooth, soft, with a strange melodic quality that sent shivers down his spine. Daniel swallowed hard. He had so many questions, but his mind struggled to find the right words. "What are you doing here? Why do you keep coming to my room?" Valera took a step closer. Daniel tensed. But she didn't seem threatening. Her glowing silver eyes studied him carefully, as if searching for something deep within him. "I have been watching," she said slowly, as if choosing her words carefully. "I had to be certain." "Certain of what?" Her gaze locked onto his. "That you are the one." Daniel's stomach flipped. The one for what? Valera hesitated. Then, moving slowly, she reached out her hand toward him. Instinct told him to pull away, but something stronger made him stay still. Her fingers barely touched his wrist, a light, almost electric sensation. The moment their skin connected, a warmth spread through his body. It was not painful, not unpleasant, just strange. Valera inhaled sharply, her silver eyes widening. "It is true." Daniel yanked his arm back. "What's true? What are you talking about?" Valera didn't move. She only whispered 3 words that made his blood run cold. "You are mine." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Daniel's heartbeat thundered in his ears. What did that mean? What had he just gotten himself into? Valera took a slow step backward, her expression unreadable. "You will understand soon." And just like that, she vanished. Daniel was left alone, heart racing, mind spinning. He had his answers, but now he had even more questions. Daniel Carter couldn't stop thinking about her. Valera. She had appeared in his room twice now. First, watching him in silence. Then, speaking those 3 haunting words. "You are mine." It had been 3 nights since she last appeared, but Daniel could still feel the warmth of her touch on his wrist. It wasn't just a normal touch. It had done something to him. His body felt different. His senses were sharper. He noticed things he never had before. The faintest sounds, the smallest changes in temperature. Even his reflexes felt faster. Was this because of her? He needed answers. So on the 4th night, he stayed awake again. 2:37 a.m. A soft hum. A shift in the air. She was back. Daniel sat up straight. This time, he wasn't afraid. He wanted answers. "Who are you?" he asked firmly. "What did you do to me?" Valera's silver eyes glowed in the dim light. "I have bonded with you." Daniel blinked. Bonded. Valera stepped closer. "You have been marked, Daniel Carter. Your body has accepted the Nervari connection." "Nervari," he repeated. "Is that your species?" She nodded. "We are a race that forms only one true bond in a lifetime. It is rare. But when it happens, it cannot be broken." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "And you think I'm your bond?" Valera gave a slow nod. "Not think." "I know." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this. This wasn't normal. This wasn't human. "I didn't agree to any of this," he said. Valera's gaze softened. "Nor did I." That made him pause. "The bond does not ask," she continued. "It simply is." Daniel let out a shaky breath. This was insane. He was just a mechanic on a lunar colony. How did he suddenly become the mate of an alien warrior? But before he could respond, Valera's expression changed. She looked tense, worried. "What's wrong?" Daniel asked. Valera's glowing eyes flickered toward the door. "They are coming." His stomach dropped. "Who?" "The Zorvex Dominion." Her voice was sharp now, urgent. "They hunt my kind. And now, they will hunt you." Daniel's blood turned to ice. Everything was happening too fast. He had no time to process what she had done to him, what this bond meant, because now his life was in danger. The colony, his home, his people. Valera took a step forward, gripping his wrist again. The warmth surged through him once more. "You must trust me, Daniel Carter." Daniel met her glowing silver eyes. His instincts screamed at him to run, to hide. But deep inside, another feeling grew stronger. He couldn't turn back now. This was only the beginning. Daniel Carter's mind raced. The Zorvex Dominion. He had never heard that name before, but the way Vel-Era said it sent chills down his spine. Who were they? Why were they hunting her? And why did she say they would come for him too? Vel-Era stepped closer, her glowing silver eyes locked onto his. We must leave now. Daniel shook his head. Leave? I can't just disappear. The colony? My job. Everything I know is here. Vel-Era's expression hardened. If you stay, you die. A cold silence filled the room. Daniel clenched his fists. This was insane. 4 days ago, he was just a mechanic on a moonbase. Now, an alien woman was telling him an unknown enemy was coming to kill him. And yet, he believed her. A deep instinct told him she wasn't lying. Daniel took a slow breath. Tell me everything. Now. Vel-Era hesitated but nodded. The Zorvik's dominion is a ruthless empire. They conquer planets, enslave species, and experiment on those they find useful. Her voice darkened. They consider my kind rare, a prize. We are fast, strong, and can form deep bonds. They want to control us. Daniel swallowed hard. And now they want me because of this bond thing. Vel-Era gave a slow nod. The moment I touched you, you became part of me. The bond is real, permanent. They will sense it, and they will come. Daniel exhaled sharply. This was too much. But before he could speak, a loud alarm blared through the colony. A warning siren. Daniel's stomach dropped. Something was coming. Vel-Era's head snapped up. They are here. Daniel ran to the window. Outside, beyond the colony's protective dome, black, jagged ships loomed against the darkness of space. Their sleek, predatory designs sent a wave of dread through him. The Zorviks had arrived. How did they find us so fast? Daniel muttered. Vel-Era's face darkened. They must have been tracking me. I was careless. Daniel's pulse pounded. He had two choices, stay and fight, or run and survive. He turned to Vel-Era. You have a plan, don't you? She met his gaze. We escape, get off this moon and find allies. Daniel's chest tightened. The colony was his home, but if he stayed, he would be putting everyone at risk. Vel-Era held out her hand. Come with me, Daniel Carter. Daniel took one last look at his room, his old life. Then he grabbed her hand. Vel-Era pulled him close. Hold on. A bright flash of energy surged around them, and they vanished. The war had just begun. Daniel Carter's vision blurred as the world twisted around him. 1 second, he was in his quarters. The next, he was somewhere else. The cold, metal walls of the lunar colony were gone. Instead, he stood inside a dimly lit spacecraft, strange symbols glowing along the curved walls. His breath came fast, his heart pounding. What? Where? He staggered slightly. Vel-Era caught his arm, steadying him. We are safe. For now. Daniel looked around. The room was small but advanced, sleek black metal, glowing blue panels, and a hum of unseen power beneath his feet. He turned to Vel-Era, his mind still spinning. You teleported us. She nodded. Short-range transport. My ship was hidden just outside the colony's perimeter. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. This was insane. A few days ago, he was fixing engines. Now, he was on an alien ship, running from an enemy he had never even heard of. Then, the reality hit him. The colony, he said sharply. They're going to attack the colony. Vel-Era's expression darkened. Yes, they are not just after me now. They know about you. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we have to stop them. Vel-Era hesitated. That is not your fight. Daniel's eyes flashed. Like hell it isn't. That's my home. My people. I'm not going to sit in your ship while those bastards burn it to the ground. Vel-Era studied him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. You truly are different, she murmured. Daniel frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Velhera turned and tapped a glowing panel. A holographic display appeared, showing the Zorvex ships hovering over the colony. "They expect you to run," she said. "They think humans are weak, that you will hide while they take what they want." She met his gaze. "But you will fight." Daniel rolled his shoulders. "Dan right, I will." Velhera's eyes glowed with something new, respect. She pressed a series of buttons, and the ship rumbled beneath them. Weapons activated. "You are a mechanic, yes?" she asked. Daniel smirked. "Yeah, I fix things." His expression hardened. "And I also know how to break them." Velhera grinned. "Then let us break a warship." The ship surged forward, cutting through the darkness of space. On the screen, the Zorvex fleet loomed over the colony, preparing to strike. But this time, they weren't just facing a Nervari fugitive. They were facing the human who refused to bow. Daniel clenched his fists as the ship's weapons locked onto the enemy. The Zorvex came for him. Now, it was his turn to fight back. Daniel Carter had never piloted a spaceship before, but right now, that didn't matter. Velhera's sleek, black and silver starship shot through space, weaving between the jagged Zorvex warships hovering over the lunar colony. Red warning lights flashed across the control panel, but Daniel wasn't afraid. He was angry. "This is a stealth ship, right?" he asked, gripping the co-pilot's seat as Velhera maneuvered the craft. "Yes," she said, flipping glowing switches with speed and precision. "But it won't last forever. They have already detected us." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then let's make the first move." Velhera glanced at him, silver eyes shining. "You truly wish to fight?" Daniel's fists clenched. "They came to my home. They threatened my people. Dan right, I want to fight." Velhera's lips curled into a smirk. "Then hold on." The ship lurched to the side as she rolled into a sharp dive. A massive Zorvex cruiser loomed ahead, its hull covered in glowing red energy cannons. Daniel's mind worked fast. He knew ships, he knew machines, he knew how to break things. There. He pointed at a cluster of exposed vents near the cruiser's engines. "That's their cooling system. If we hit that, they're done." Velhera's eyes widened slightly. "You saw that in seconds." Daniel grinned. "Told you. I fix things. I also break them." Velhera didn't hesitate. She switched to manual targeting and fired. A pair of blue plasma torpedoes streaked through the void, slamming into the cruiser's exposed vents. A chain reaction erupted inside the ship, and within moments, boom, flames and debris exploded into space. The massive warship lurched as its engines failed, drifting helplessly. Daniel let out a breath. One down, but they weren't done yet. "Two more ships are locking onto us," Velhera warned. Daniel's heart pounded. "We can't outrun them, can we?" "No," Velhera said, "but we can outthink them." Daniel's mind raced. Then an idea hit him. "What if we make it look like we're already destroyed?" Velhera blinked. "Explain." Daniel grinned. "Kill the power. Full shutdown. Let them think they got us." Velhera hesitated for only a second, then nodded. With a few quick motions, she deactivated all ship systems. Lights died. Engines went silent. The ship drifted into the debris field left by the destroyed cruiser. Daniel held his breath. Outside, the Zorvex warships scanned the wreckage. Seconds passed. Then, finally, "They are moving away," Velhera whispered. It worked. Daniel let out a slow breath. His plan had worked. They had survived. But this wasn't over. He turned to Velhera, determination burning in his eyes. "Now let's make sure they never come back." Velhera smiled. Agreed. The real battle had just begun. Daniel Carter and Velhera floated in silence, hidden among the wreckage of the destroyed Zorvex warship. Their ship remained dark, its systems powered down. Outside, two massive enemy cruisers slowly scanned the debris field. "They are looking for us," Velhera whispered. Daniel kept his breathing steady. Yeah, but now we're looking for them too. Valera turned to him, silver eyes curious. You have another plan. Daniel smirked. Oh yeah, and it's going to hurt. Valera listened as he explained. A slow, dangerous grin spread across her face. You are truly unlike any human I have met. Daniel chuckled. You don't know many, do you? Valera leaned closer. No, but I think I chose well. Daniel felt his pulse quicken but focused on the mission. This wasn't the time for distractions. He nodded toward the warships. We're outgunned, but they don't know where we are. That gives us the advantage. Valera's fingers danced over the controls, reactivating the ship's power, but only at minimal levels. No lights, no engine trails, just a whisper of energy to keep them moving. Slowly, they drifted toward the second Zorvex warship. Their shields are up, Valera murmured. Daniel studied the ship. He had worked on human ships all his life, but machines were machines. Every machine had a weakness. There. He pointed at a cluster of external power nodes near the ship's underbelly. That's their shield generator. Valera's eyes flickered with approval. You see things most do not. Daniel smirked. Like I said, I know how to break things. With careful precision, Valera angled the ship. They had one shot. Daniel's fingers hovered over the weapon system. Firing in 3, 2, 1. A silent pulse of blue energy shot from their ship, slamming into the exposed nodes. Sparks exploded across the enemy warship's hull. The shield flickered, then died. Valera reacted instantly. She fired again, this time at the warship's weapon systems. Boom! The cruiser shuddered under the attack, its left wing bursting into flames. The second warship panicked. It turned sharply, trying to find its attacker, but it was too late. Valera swooped in, dodging debris, and unleashed a final torpedo. Crash! The enemy cruiser ruptured, its engines detonating in a violent chain reaction. Daniel watched as the warship broke apart, flames consuming its core. They had done it. Valera exhaled. 2 ships destroyed, and 1 remains. Daniel's grin faded as he looked at the last, largest warship hovering over the colony. This isn't over, he said, not until the leader of this invasion is gone. Valera nodded. Then let us finish this. Their ship turned toward the final Zorvex battleship. The hunter was now the hunted, and Daniel Carter was ready to strike. You said. Daniel Carter's grip tightened on a control panel as Valera guided their ship toward the final Zorvex battleship. It was the largest of the 3, a floating fortress of black metal and glowing red energy. That thing looks like a nightmare, Daniel muttered. Valera's silver eyes gleamed. Then let us wake it. The warship had seen its 2 escorts fall, and now it was on high alert. Red energy turrets swiveled in every direction, scanning for threats. They knew someone was hunting them. We can't fight that thing head-on, Daniel said. We need to get inside. Valera glanced at him. You are thinking of boarding it. Daniel nodded. We take out the command center from the inside. No command, no invasion. Valera considered it for only a moment before nodding. Then we must move fast. She piloted the ship low, skimming across the battlefield wreckage. The warship wasn't scanning the debris. It was focused on the open space ahead. That was their way in. Daniel saw the opportunity. There, docking bay entrance. Valera's hands moved swiftly over the controls. The ship twisted sharply, diving toward the massive hangar of the Zorvex cruiser. But then, VZZZT, a red energy beam shot past them, missing by inches. They spotted us, Daniel yelled. Valera cursed under her breath, maneuvering with impossible speed. The ship rolled, dodging another blast. Hold on, she shouted. Daniel barely had time to react before she cut the ship's power again, just for a second. The sudden stop made them vanish from the enemy sensors. The warship's turrets hesitated, confused. In that brief moment, Velvera fired the boosters, launching them straight into the open hangar. Boom! The ship skidded across the metallic floor, coming to a sharp halt. Daniel didn't waste time. He grabbed a pulse rifle from the storage compartment and looked at Velvera. "Let's finish this." Velvera's energy sword hummed to life, her eyes fierce. Together, they sprinted out of the ship. The Zorvex soldiers inside the hangar barely had time to react before Velvera sliced through them with deadly precision. Daniel took cover behind a cargo crate, firing precise shots into their ranks. "Command center," he called. Velvera motioned to a hallway. "Up there. We must move now." They ran through the metallic corridors, taking down any Zorvex in their path. The warship trembled. The crew knew they had intruders. As they reached the command deck, Velvera turned to Daniel. "Once we disable their control systems, we must leave immediately." Daniel smirked. "Got it." They kicked open the door to the command center. And there, waiting for them, was the Zorvex commander. A towering figure in dark armor. Red eyes. A deep, rumbling growl. Daniel raised his weapon. This was it. The final battle had begun. The Zorvex commander stood tall, his dark armor gleaming under the red emergency lights. His glowing eyes locked onto Daniel and Velvera with a mix of amusement and fury. "You are bold to come here," the commander growled, his voice deep and menacing. "But your fight ends now." Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle. "Yeah, we'll see about that." Without warning, the commander lunged forward, faster than Daniel expected. Killang. Velvera's energy sword clashed against the commander's massive blade. Sparks flew as they struggled for control. Daniel fired his pulse rifle, but the commander's armor absorbed the shots. The alien turned, swung his blade. Velvera dodged just in time. Daniel rolled behind cover, scanning the control room. "Think, Daniel. You can't win this fight with brute force." His eyes darted to the command console behind the commander. "That's it. Velvera," Daniel shouted. "Keep him busy." She didn't hesitate. With a battle cry, Velvera attacked again, her strikes fast and deadly. The commander blocked each one, but he was too focused on her to notice Daniel moving toward the console. Daniel ducked low, sprinted behind the enemy's back, and reached the control panel. His hands flew over the glowing alien symbols, trying to make sense of them. Come on, come on. Then he found it, the ship's core override system. Bingo. The commander realized too late. "No," he roared, spinning toward Daniel. Velvera tackled him, pushing him back. "Finish it," she shouted. Daniel didn't hesitate. He slammed his fist onto the panel. A loud alarm blared through the ship. Warning lights flashed. The warship shook violently. Velvera leaped back as the commander staggered. The ship was shutting down. Daniel grinned. "Looks like your invasion is over." The commander snarled in rage. He raised his weapon for one final strike. Boom! A massive explosion rocked the ship as the power core detonated. The walls cracked, flames burst through the corridors. Velvera grabbed Daniel's arm. "We must go. Now." They ran, dodging falling debris as the warship began to collapse. Reaching the hangar, they sprinted to Velvera's ship. Daniel leaped into the cockpit, Velvera right behind him. "Hold on," she shouted as she powered up the engines. The ship shot out of the hangar, just as the warship exploded behind them. Daniel watched as the last Zorvex warship crumbled, its remains drifting into space. Velvera exhaled, looking at him with admiration. "We did it." Daniel let out a breathless laugh. "Yeah, we really did." But he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. The Zorvex would come again. And next time, he would be ready. The Zorvex warship was gone. Its fiery remains drifted in space, a final reminder of the battle. Inside the cockpit, Daniel Carter let out a deep breath. His heart was still racing. He turned to Velvera, who watched the destruction with a look of quiet satisfaction. We won, he said, almost in disbelief. Velera nodded. Yes, and because of you, the Zorvex invasion has failed. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. I'm just a mechanic. I didn't plan on fighting an alien war. Velera smirked. And yet, you fought better than many trained warriors. Daniel looked at her, meeting her silver gaze. There was something different in her eyes now. Respect, admiration, something deeper. Before he could respond, the ship's communicator beeped. Velhera pressed a button, and a hologram of Earth's Defense Command appeared. This is General Harlow of the United Earth Forces, a gruff voice said. Whoever you are, you just saved a lot of lives. Daniel straightened, just doing what had to be done, sir. The general gave him a long look, then nodded. We could use someone like you, Carter. Humanity needs warriors who can think on their feet. Daniel hesitated. He had never seen himself as a soldier, but after everything that had happened, Velera placed a hand on his arm. It is your choice, she said softly, but you will not be alone. He looked at her, then back at the hologram. Finally, he smiled. All right. I'm in. The general grinned. Welcome aboard. The hologram faded. Velera leaned back, watching him with amusement. So, a warrior after all. Daniel laughed. Looks like it. For a moment, they sat in silence, floating among the stars. The battle was over, but Daniel knew this was just the beginning. He turned to Velera. So, what happens now? She smiled, her silver eyes shining. Now, we prepare for whatever comes next. Together. Daniel grinned. Yeah, he could get used to this. As their ship set course for Earth, he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again.